a football team has a backup plan.
Right.
And that is in the sense of a backup player who maybe never sees the field outside of, the sideline.
That's right.
But any sports team, whether it's baseball or football or whatnot, has a backup plan.
Of course.
And in finances, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? You need a backup plan.
Yeah, and in several ways, actually. Let's picture a baseball team out there on the field, and the main player, of course, would be the pitcher, of course. And if the pitcher threw a perfect game, you really wouldn't have as much of a need for the other players on the field, right? But
correct.
If perhaps a batter does hit the ball and you didn't have any outfield out there, right? No outfield players, it'd be a problem, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, you'd be playing at a serious disadvantage.
Very. And you don't want just any outfielder out there. You want some good people who have, fast running abilities.
You want Ken Griffey Jr., man,
Absolutely.
in his prime.
So it does matter to have a team, first of all. I mean, a full team, right? Yeah. And the very best of the team, right? So same thing with the financial planning. When it comes to putting your team together, do you have the best attorney to help you out? Do you have the best CPA? Do you have the best financial planner, investment person, whatever? So like you're saying, the complete team does matter, and who you have on the team really matters. And is that team coordinated? Are they working together? So, like if two people are going after the ball at the same time and one's not calling it out and they run into each other, that's not so good. So communication between the players is really important, right? So, we think about backup. Who is your backup? The pitcher has the backup, the rest of the team members. In your financial plan, you've got, certain things in your life. For example, you're working, you've got an income. That income stream actually allows you to do everything you want to in life, right? Plan out your whole, economic picture. Well, do you have a backup for that income plan? And most people actually don't. So, for example, if you are working for an employer and you happen to have short-term disability coverage, long-term disability coverage, and you actually get hurt or sick and can't go into work, then your employer benefits will come in, and help you reimburse somebody's going to pay you for your time when you're not able to go into work. But if you don't have that through your employer and you don't have that on your own, then your plan can fall apart. So backing up your income plan is really important. One thing that a lot of people don't realize, though, is that if that happens to you, if you do become disabled in some way, then you might have disability income coming in, which is tax-free and so forth. It helps you pay the bills. But what happens to your retirement program? Let's say that you recover, but now your years set back, from putting away money in your retirement program. Very few people realize that if you own like a permanent life insurance policy and you have a disability waiver premium on there, if you are disabled, that company will continue to make those contributions for you into that plan, and your life insurance will continue to accumulate cash value, which is not happening anywhere else in your retirement plan or anything. So that's a benefit that you want to maybe consider.
So when you start looking at all of these, and I it's kind of like the backup with insurance. I mean, do people ever just say, Glenn, I don't want any more insurance. I have car insurance. I have house insurance. Sure. I have disability insurance. Now I have health insurance. At some point in time, do people go, Glenn, I don't want any more insurance? I mean, half the time, the hope is to never use it.
Right.
And if you went through, I couldn't even calculate the numbers off the top of my head, but if you went through, your health insurance costs, it's $700-800 a month, whether you pay it or your employer.
Sure.
Your car insurance at $100-200 a month. Your home insurance at $100 a month. If you go through the whole thing, at some point, aren't we paying a lot of money for the just-in-case factor?
Right, except that life comes at you, and you will go through these phases from education to career to retirement, right? And that's going to happen whether or not you have insurance, right? But what you might want to think about is, how is the tax code working against you or for you? In other words, if your income now exceeds $250,000 and you have net investment income, dividends, capital gains, and so forth, you're going to pay an extra 3.9% tax on the dividends, interest, and capital gains, and so forth. What happens if you have a place that you're storing money that doesn't get hit with that tax, right? So kind of hate to let this little known secret out there, but actually life insurance cash values are not hit with that 3.9% tax, and you can have as much money as you want to in those programs. So it's basically...
So some of these investments play multiple roles. I mean, going back to the football analogy, you may play tight end, but now you're also on special teams and on the kicking unit,
right? Because
you're not necessarily just for that one purpose.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about where is your money going now, what kind of program do you have? Is it doing everything for you that it should be? Could you make $1 do more than one function? You see, so then when you're starting to use your money in multiple ways, the same dollar, using it multiple ways, then you're making that more powerful. You're making better use of your resources, which will come back to you in benefits later on. In other words, you can actually take money out of your life insurance later on, should you live to retirement, and tax-free, basically. You're not going to be paying tax. It's not going to impact the taxation of your Social Security income. You're not going to pay taxes as it's accumulating or when you take it out. And by the way, if you don't live until retirement, then those who were depending on your income are going to, be taken care of. So I'm just saying that's a great way to back up your plan for yourself, but also for those depending on you. But then, thinking of backup, people should have an emergency fund, right? And you got to ask yourself, how long will your existing emergency fund last you? Let's say you lose a job, perhaps something happens and you need an emergency money. So if you don't have the money, then you got to borrow it, right? So you got to use somebody else's money. So think about how long will your current emergency fund last. Then think about how long will you be retired, and how many years will you experience that kind of lifestyle, and how long will that resource last? You've got only your working years to accumulate that. So that's a long-term emergency fund. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So think about short-term and long-term.
So my question again then, because I'm interested, but if you're spending all this money on insurance, I mean, how often, how does the balancing act work between I'm going to buy more insurance versus I'm actually going to save more money?
Okay.
Because you talk about having two values, but there's still a cost of the insurance.
Sure, of course. There is a cost of insurance. So, for example, if you are fully funding your 401k plan, that gives you a current write-off, right? And if your income is above a certain level, you cannot even contribute to a Roth IRA to accumulate tax-free money later on. So instead of putting money into a Roth IRA, if you were to put that into a permanent life insurance policy, then you have that kind of tax-free build-up for later on. Okay, so how you're actually using your resources can, like I say, go back to the concept of using the same dollar in more than one way. So consider, do you own term insurance? Do you own life insurance? Should you have that? Are you funding a Roth IRA? Maybe the life insurance would actually be more effective than a Roth IRA, and you can put more than $6,000 in, per year. So how are you storing your assets right now? Where is it at? What's it doing for you? Evaluate that, and then make $1 do more than one function.
So here, again, going back to my original points, though, is you have all these options, and you've been doing financial planning for
about 30 years.
30 years. If you go find somebody who is new, at some point in time, I mean, they're kind of struggling to figure all this out, right?
Yes.
And not making these small adjustments with tax codes and things of that nature.
Right.
Is there a big element of, not to knock people with no experience, but if you're if you have a good amount of money and you have a lot of planning to do, there must be a huge advantage to working with somebody who understands all these aspects.
Yes, because if you get lost in one aspect of your plan and forget about the impact of other aspects, then you're actually working against yourself sometimes.
Yeah, we always like to call it having one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake.
Yeah. Not such a good idea. I just want to mention another thing also. When it comes to legacy planning, you want to have backups as well for beneficiary arrangements. In other words, don't just name a primary beneficiary. Have contingent beneficiaries named. Also, contingent successor trustees. Successor owners of property, that kind of thing. So, powers of attorney. Make sure that your backup plan is in place and those people are aware of it, first of all, who's going to be the team member, and are they capable and willing, and if they're not, then who's the backup? So there are different aspects of your financial plan that you're going to want to have backups for. So
yeah. So when you start going through this whole process, again, we're here with Glen Thiessen, wealth advisor with Transition Planning Inc. We just have about a minute left. But, when you start going through all of these, how many questions are you asking somebody to get to the answers? Because in my mind, it'd be very difficult for anybody to even know what they don't know.
Right. It starts with, okay, what's your current picture?
And you once called this like an 11-month setup.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm working with a person, we got to systematically work through where they're at today. What's the current picture? Assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. And then what are their goals? Where do they want to go? What are the planned major expenses coming up? Who are the important people in their lives? And who's depending on them and so forth. Where do they want to go? When do they want to retire? What kind of lifestyle do they want? So then we go from where they're at to how do we get to where they want to go? And it's a systematic way of making sure that everything is working together like it should, that they're making the most effective use of their money along the way. So that way they can actually accomplish their objectives and even, supersede what they expected. Mm-hmm. So it's a process.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's probably what a lot of people probably need to realize is that, as with anything, you're not going to go in and solve it with the silver bullet the next day.
No, it's a process.
And I would imagine a lot of people, there's such this need for instant gratification. Mm-hmm. Do you fight that a lot?
Well, yeah.
What do you mean you can't plan me into retirement in 6 months? Like, how's that possible?
And the sad thing is if, people, kind of boil in the pot for a long period of time and they figure, okay, I can pay this bill. I can shift this hat, here and there. And basically, before you know it, you're deep in debt. And how do you climb out of that? That's not an overnight thing. Mm-hmm. So that takes a strategy. So
yeah, in fact, I've heard a lot of people go to financial planners who are really about asset management, and they come with it's like a debt plan.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to free yourself up from the slavery that you're in where everybody else controls your income because you want to retake control so that you can redirect it into your own pocket in various very helpful ways.
Sure. Glenn, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining me, man.
You're welcome.
Stick around for a little bit. I'd love to get some more opinions at the end of the show. Again, that's Glen Thiessen discussing all the reasons you need a backup plan, just like the Seahawks need backup players. It's got to get Seahawk crazy around here for the next 6 months, right?
That's right.
That's pretty much all I'm going to talk about. That and finances and real estate and things of that nature.